This is the woman, Natalia Veselnitskaya, at the center of a storm over a meeting with Donald Trump's son in June 2016.
You wake up one morning and find you're the focus of all the high-ranking upstream media.
On June 9th, 2 weeks after Donald Trump secured the nomination, his son, Donald Trump Jr., along with Jared Kushner and former campaign chair Paul Manafort, met with the Russian attorney. In June, you met with Donald Trump Jr., with Jared Kushner, with Paul Manafort. What was the purpose of that meeting?
I never knew who else would be attending the meeting. All I knew that Mr. Donald Trump Jr. was willing to meet with me. I could recognize the young gentleman who was only present in the meeting for probably the first 7 to 10 minutes, and then he stood up and left the room. It was Mr. Jared Kushner, and he never came back, by the way. And the other individual who was at the same meeting was always looking at his phone. He was reading something. He never took any active part in the conversation. That was Mr. Manafort.
They had the impression, it appears, that they were going to be told some information that you had about the DNC. How did they get that impression?
It's quite possible that maybe they were looking for such information. They wanted it so badly.
And this morning, she denies claims she is connected to a Russian government effort to aid Donald Trump's presidency. Have you ever worked for the Russian government? Do you have connections to the Russian government?
No.
You meet at Trump Tower.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting was described earlier today on the Today Show. Did she describe it accurately?
I think fairly accurately. I mean, I was a little taken back by her saying, you know, talking about me pressing for the information. But as you can see from the emails, the pretext of the meeting was, hey, we have information. And there was, you know, some small talks. I don't even remember what it was. It just was sort of nonsensical, inane and garbled, and then quickly went on to, you know, a story about Russian adoption and how we could possibly help. And really, that's where we shut it down, which is, wait a second, what does this have to do with
Did you even know what the McGinty Act was?
I'd never even heard of it before, you know, that day. You know, I think it became pretty apparent to, you know, Jared and Paul, who I think Jared left after a few minutes. Paul got in his phone.
She said that, yeah.
Yeah, this is her account.
I
do remember that. Yeah, we were all there. I was basically sitting there listening as a courtesy to my acquaintance who had set up the meeting. And, you know, in his own words, you can hear what he said, and you played it earlier, about it. I mean, he apologized to me walking out of the meeting, basically for wasting my time.
Well, and he did say at the end of your statement today, you did point out, as Goldstone said today, the entire meeting was the most inane nonsense I've ever heard, and I'm actually, you know, agitated by it.
Yeah, listen.
And he called and apologized to you?
There wasn't really follow-up because there's nothing there to follow up. You know, but as we were walking out, he said, listen, I'm sorry for that. But I think what happened, he sort of goosed up. He built up. There was some puffery to the email, perhaps to get the meeting, to make it happen. And, you know, in the end, there was probably some bait and switch about what it was really supposed to be about. And so, you know, there is nothing there.
So she is saying that she had no information to provide. Do you remember what she's suggesting, that you were pressing her a little bit for information?
I imagine I did. I mean, I was probably pressing because the pretext of the meeting was, hey, I have information about your opponent. It was this, you know, hey, some DNC donors may have done something in Russia and they didn't pay taxes. I was like, what does this have to do with anything? You know, especially in light of everything that was out there. I was like, this isn't.
Did you ever have any contact with this woman again?
No.
Did you ever have any contact with Goldstone again?
Casual, hey, how's it going? Emin's going to be in town performing, something like that. But
did you ever see Emin again? Except that, well,
I don't believe so, no. I don't think I've seen Emin since this transpired.
Okay, so this is a hypothetical. In any point in your mind, did Don Jr. have a siren saying, okay, they're talking, again, I go back to the first email about Russia, Russian government, I'm meeting with this person, you were going to talk on the phone. Did you ever think, maybe this might not be?
Listen, I think, like I said, in retrospect, I probably would have done things a little differently. Again, this is before the Russia mania. This is before they were building it up in the press. For me, this was opposition research. They had something, you know, maybe concrete evidence to all the stories I'd been hearing about, but they were probably underreported for, you know, years, not just during the campaign. So I think I wanted to hear it out. But really, it went nowhere, and it was apparent that that wasn't what the meeting was actually about.
Okay, let me ask a hypothetical, and I know hypotheticals, maybe you've thought about it since, and since this has now become Russia collusion, and et cetera. Did you ever meet with any other person from Russia that you know?
You know, I don't even know. I've probably met with other people from Russia,
I mean,
but certainly
not
in the context of a formalized meeting or anything like that, because why would I? You know, in the grand scheme of things, how busy we were, it was much more important to doing this. This was a courtesy to an acquaintance.
Coverage, but
well, like I said, I think we had more important things to worry about. I wasn't sure of the credibility of any of this stuff. At the time, I'm sitting there, Indiana had just probably happened. You know, I'm worried about hearing a contested convention. So, you know, we're going to fight. This is the first time we've ever done any of this. This was, you know, I'm still way in the learning curve on all of this. So it wasn't that urgent to me if I'm saying, hey, it can wait till the end of summer. But yeah, obviously I want to hear the information. I mean, that's what we do in business. If there's information out there, you want it, and then you make what you do with it. If there was something that came from it that was shady, if it was a danger to national security, I would obviously bring it right to someone. But I didn't know what anything was. It turns out it was nothing. And therefore, there's nothing to be able to actually talk about.
The whole contact took how long? How long was the meeting?
Oh, 20 minutes or so.
About 20 minutes. And Jared left after 5 or 10?
Yes.
Like she said, and Paul Manafort was on his
phone
the whole time?
Pretty much. Listen, like I said, it became pretty apparent that this was not what we were in there talking about.
A lot of people are going to want to know this about your father. Did you tell your father anything about this?
No. It was such a nothing. There was nothing to tell. I mean, I wouldn't have even remembered it until you start scouring through the stuff. It was literally
announced earlier tonight. He's going to be looking into it. You said in a tweet you would fully cooperate with any investigation.
Of course.
Completely.
100%.
Turn over everything that they want, and you feel you already have.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you have nothing to hide. You want to be, and that means you'll testify under oath, all of that.
All of it.
Yeah. Any other issue, you know, your sister was attacked. I could play montages of that.
Yeah.
Joe Scarborough calls your father a schmuck, a goon, a thug. That's NBC's coverage. You've got the severed head issue. You've been attacked. It seems like one by one they try to pick off anyone around the president. Why do you think there's this reaction that is so almost like there's so many groups so opposing your father? Why do you think this? I've never seen it in all the years I've covered politics.
Yeah, I think we're just so far away from the political elite. You know, whether you were on one side or the other, you were still part of that group. There was never necessarily consequences for inaction and for doing things, you know, their way. So I think when you come from so far out, I mean, look at the attacks on Ivanka. I mean, I was pretty vocal about that stuff this weekend. I mean, if she was anyone else's daughter, she'd be a feminist icon, one of the most, just this incredible, brilliant, well-spoken woman. And they try to belittle her at every chance. It's really sad. And, as, you know, again, for me as a family member, as her brother, as her older brother, you know, you do take it personally, and it does make you want to fight back. And that's, you know, perhaps what we are, is we are fighters, and they don't take well to that either, because most people don't like being called on their stuff.
My last question, one of the things you said tonight, maybe not so Trumpian, I guess, in the sense, although I do think your father and you are a lot alike, you said in retrospect.
Yeah.
Explain that with a little bit more detail.
Listen, again, I think I probably know more now. I think in the grand scheme of the hysteria that's been talked about, you know, over the last 8, 9, 10 months with Russia, things are probably different than they were 13 months ago. And yeah, there were a couple people talking about it, and they just sort of, you know, launched this notion. You know, it's just a little bit different. I mean, in retrospect, I know more now, but hindsight's always 20/20.
All right, Don Jr., thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
Appreciate you answering every question I can think of. When we come back.
The president is the head of the executive branch, a unitary executive branch. Constitutionally, he can control the branch. He could tell the director of the FBI, do not prosecute Flynn. He can say, prosecute so-and-so. There is no constitutional barrier to the president doing that.
But the fact that Flynn's part of this investigation was part of his team, I mean, in effect, isn't he saying, don't investigate me or my people?
So he has a conflict of interest. That's an ethical
But that's not trying to obstruct justice?
He violates.
Just explain to me the difference there.
Because a president has to commit an unlawful act, and Nixon committed an unlawful act. The claim was that Clinton committed an unlawful act, perjury. But a president, by simply firing somebody or telling somebody to perform a constitutionally satisfactory function, that can't be an obstruction of justice. Nor do I think it can be an impeachable offense. I'll tell you why.
But it impacts the investigation, no?
Sure, it would impact the investigation if he gave him a pardon also. Would you say that's an obstruction of justice? The president has a constitutional right now to pardon Flynn. And to pardon everybody in the Russian investigation and say there will be no more investigations. None of that would be an obstruction of justice.
So how do people get around that?
Exercise.
I mean, in the sense of if there is a crime that has been committed by somebody within the administration, and like you said, the president's the top dog, right? So he may have the power. But if that's the case, I mean, this is a democracy. I mean, he is not a dictator.
Well, it's a democracy, and he was elected president. And as a result of being elected president, he has certain authority under the Constitution. There's a remedy. It's called election. And next time he runs, people should vote against him if they believe he acted improperly. There's also impeachment, which is more political. The problem with impeachment is what President Trump has done is exactly what candidate Trump did during the campaign. And you can't impeach a president who ran and won based on all the things he's done, all the things he's now doing. He's just repeating. There's not that much new that would warrant either an impeachment, certainly not a criminal prosecution.